Okay, so we are gonna start with decorators. And I just gotta tell you, don't worry if you don't like decorators. They are a little bit weird and they are experimental. So if we go to the docs, you're gonna see what I mean. So they're gonna give you, of course, a weird explanation, a weird introduction, like everything else. But then it says, note decorators are experimental feature that might change in future releases. So this is pretty much saying, dude, this is something that you can use, but use it at your own risk. We are not responsible. So you can professionally use TypeScript and do all the things we just learned, and not use decorators, and no one is gonna think less of you. And I'm adding this lecture at the very end because, again, this section is optional because it's experimental. So, and I'm again teaching you this because maybe in the future you're going to see someone else's code and they are using decorators, and you're going to say, what the hell is this? So, you need to know at least know what it is and recognize it. Maybe not use it. Okay, so a decorator, let me just give you a brief explanation. And notice I'm just wiping everything on AppTS. I'm just not doing anything. And we are using the same project than before. So a decorator is something that we can use, that we can attach to a class, a method, an accessor, a property, or a parameter. Now, a parameter, it's, in other words, an argument. Let's say we have a constructor and we pass an argument, that is a parameter. And I'm using the keyword parameter because if you go to the docs, they're going to say parameter and not argument. All right, but you need to know that it's, in essence, the same thing. So this decorator that we will create, is going to be invoked at runtime. And we can only use decorators on classes. That's it. We can use it only on classes. If we use it on a method, it's inside of a class. If we use it on an accessor, it's inside of a class. Same for properties, same for parameters. Everything, it's inside within the class context. And of course, since you can use it on several things like classes, methods, and properties, the code changes a little bit for each decorator. If we use a decorator for a class, the code is going to be something. If we use it for a method, the code it's going to change just a little bit because we can do different things with this. Now, in essence, a decorator is just a function, just a dumb function. That's it. And this function will be invoked and will run at the very beginning. If we attach a decorator to a class, it's going to run before the constructor. It's going to run before anything. We know that the constructor kicks in first on a class. Well, this one runs even before that. And I know I'm giving you an explanation, large explanation, and we need to kind of see some code. And I'm going to do that in a second. It's going to get a little bit confusing, but we're going to start at the top of the chain, which is I'm going to explain you what it is and how to use a class decorator. Once you get how a class decorator, a decorator for a class works, you're going to get all the other ones. I'll just assure you that. You know how you decode in your brain how a class decorator works. All the other ones are going to be piece of cake. So let's do a class decorator. So I'm going to go to the app.ts and I'm going to create a car class. Something dumb, just a car class. And we're going to create a property called brand. And this one is going to be a string, right? So then later we're going to create an instance of a car and we're going to pass a brand so we can store it. Since we're going to be passing an argument, in this case parameter, we're going to use a constructor. All right. So on the constructor, we're going to catch that brand. We're going to say that this is a string. And later we're going to say, okay, so now that that brand, it's equal to that brand we are passing. Now, since now you have a little bit more experience on TypeScript, we could easily, and you know this, we can easily do something like this, much easier. But again, I'm explaining, teaching you, so I need to be a little bit more explicit. Okay, so then of course we create a const of a car, right? And then we create a new car. And since we need to be passing a value, notice that right now it's telling us, dude, you need to pass a value. And we're going to say, okay, so the value for this one, since it's a brand, it's going to be Ford. So later I can do something like console log, and I can console log car and brand. So we should be getting the Ford, and that's what we get. We get Ford. So that's good, So far, no decorators. So a decorator, remember, that it's a function. It's just a function. Nothing really weird. So I'm going to go right here at the top, and I'm going to create a function. Now this decorator is going to be for a car, so I'm going to name it car decorator. Now the name is not important. You can call this clown or cat or whatever you want. I'm putting decorator, so it can be obvious. So by default, when you use a class decorator, you're going to get some arguments that you're going to use right here by default. Just like an event, for example, the same idea. And for class decorators, the argument you get by default is the constructor, just like this. And this one, it's a function. So what I want to do, I want to inspect, I want to console log, what are we getting? What is that argument? So I'm going to do console log, and I'm going to console log that constructor. I'm going to save it. There we go. I'm going to save it. It's going to compile and not complain. Right now it's complaining because we are not really using it. All right, so we are cool. Now notice that we get no errors, we get no warnings, nothing. And it's because we are not doing anything. This is just a function, right? It's just a function. There's there's no sign of a decorator. The only thing is the name, and again, this could be whatever. So how can we add a decorator to a class? So what we do, we go at the beginning, right at the beginning of the class, and we do @ and we put the name of, the function that it's going to serve as a decorator. Now, as soon as I do so, it's going to give us an error message. And it says on the error message, experimental support for decorators is a feature that is subject to change. It's just telling us the same thing we got on the documentation. And then it says, set the experimental decorators in your tsconfig to remove the warning. So again, if we go right here, we can do it from the command line, just like this. The target is still ES5. So we're going to go, we have it on the ES5, but then we need to enable the one that says experimental decorators. If I search it, we don't have it, or maybe yes, we do. Sorry for this. I need to copy this one, experimental decorators. So if we go right here, we get it at experimental option, right? I'm going to enable that because we need it enabled. And expected comma, and it's because maybe on the previous one, there is no comma because this one is the last. So we need to add a comma on this one. All right. So if I save this, we should be able to compile, and I'm going to kill it and run it again. But notice that now we are not getting a warning. All right, pretty cool. Okay, so if we go right here to the browser, we get this. So the class decorator has the ability to enter the constructor prototype of a class, right? And we can do it to inspect or to add things. In this case, since this is just a function, the function expects the constructor, so we are pretty much getting all of this. We have access to that one. So since we get it as an argument, we can add things or modify things on the constructor. Pretty cool. Now, you need to remember that the function, the decorator, runs before anything. So if I go right here at the top, before doing a console log, or maybe I'm just going to comment this out because we don't need it. I'm going to comment, and I'm going to do console log, and then I'm going to console log. And notice that this is a warning. We can still run the code and with no errors. I'm going to go and say decorator constructor invoked. And I'm going to pretty much do the same thing, but I'm going to run it inside of the constructor. And this one, of course, let me just delete this. This one, instead of saying decorator constructor, is going to say class constructor. We have access to the constructor of the class inside of the function, and then this one is the constructor of the class, but inside the class. So pretty much the same thing. Let me just close this. So I'm going to save it, and I'm going to reload the application, and notice that first we get decorator constructor invoked, and then class invoked. And if I just chop this and put it at the end, doesn't matter. We still get first the decorator and then the class. So now what it's running first, it's always the decorator, not the constructor anymore. Pretty cool. And okay, I'm going a little bit slow because again, this is a little bit confusing. once you get the basic idea of how decorators work, how a class decorator work, I'm going to go a little bit faster. So in conclusion, a decorator is just a function we use to attach to a class, in this case, a class decorator, and we have a direct access to the constructor, and this decorator runs before anything. And I know you're asking, what is the point of using a decorator? And it could be useful. You're going to see on the next section. So let's go to the next one because this one went a little bit long, and we're going to finish with class decorators. So let's go to the next one. All right, so let's keep moving forward with class decorators. And I'm pretty sure that you're gonna, at the end of the section, you're gonna say, "Oh, okay, I get it. I know what it is." Okay, so I'm gonna put the function, the decorator function, at the beginning, so it could be a little bit more obvious. And now we know that we create an instance of this car, of this class, and we started with the brand, so that then later we can do a console log of the brand, right? All right, let me remove this one. You're not gonna use it, and this one as well. All right. So I'm going to save it, and we get, a much easier example. So now, of course, we know that the decorator, this one, kicks in before the actual constructor, right? Before the actual constructor gets invoked. So since it kicks in before, and we do get access to it, what we can do some funky stuff. We can add some things. So let's say I want to access the constructor, and I want to access the prototype, and I want to inject a property called date. And this date will contain, the date. And I'm getting the new date from JavaScript. So now when the class starts, it will get, this brand because we are passing it, but it will also contain a property with the date right from the beginning. So if I wanted to do a console log of the date, using the new car, right? I could say date, and since we have added on the prototype, on the decorator, that date is going to be available. Now, of course, if I go to the script, we are getting, and notice on the country I'm in, so I'm getting the actual console log. So everything works. It's actually creating the property and injecting the data. So that's really cool. But we get an error message. And it says property date does not exist on type car. And it's because, of course, it doesn't exist right here. And it's giving us that warning. Now, again, remember, decorators are experimental yet. So we are getting that mistake. So we get we get two fixes. We have two ways to fix this. So the first way is, going here and say, okay, I know we're going to get a date, and this date is going to be of type date. So we can add this manually, and we will get no errors and, nothing right here. So everything is going to pass, and we are still running good code. So this is one way to do it. Then you have another way. You can delete this, and you can go to car, and this is going to look a little bit weird. You can go to car, you can wrap it with the parentheses, and then you can say any. And this is going to get rid of the error message, and it's going to allow us to do it. So if we run it, we are still running good code. We get the console logs. So pretty cool. Let's say that maybe you're thinking, dude, can we do this with a method, not with a property? Yeah, totally. You can create a method and store it inside the constructor. So I'm going to go constructor. I'm going to go again to prototype, and I'm going to say something that says give me date. Pretty simple. And this is going to be a function. And that function, what it's going to do is going to alert the date that we are injecting right here at the top, that we are creating right here at the top. So I'm going to say this.date. All right. Of course, I'm going to go and say console.log, and I want to trigger that method called giveMeDate. Of course, we still need to clear the error, so we're going to say any, and we're going to say car, and then dot, and trigger that method. And if we go and reload the application, I'm getting the alert.date. And I'm getting it because I forgot to do this. All right. So if we reload it, we get the date. So pretty cool, pretty cool. Let me do it again. And we are, we get that. And there's no need to do this. That's actually my mistake. So, okay. So again, now you can see a little bit, you can see what we can do with the decorator. Let's say that, for example, in real life, you want to create different classes, not just this car. You need to create many, many classes. And on all of these classes, you need to add a property of date, and you need to add a method of date. So if that is the case, you just can create a new class of something. Let's say I'm going to create a vehicle, just like this, and make it a class. And notice I'm not going to add anything inside. Okay, and then I'm going to create an instance of this class because we need to do it. I'm going to call it vehicle, and this is one is going to be a new vehicle, and I'm not passing anything. So I want to say, for example, I'm going to say vehicle. Oh, let me do it correctly. Vehicle date. Just to add something, and I'm going to do comma, and I'm going to use that thing that we're going to inject the top. In this case, give me date and the date. So I'm going to go and say, okay, first it's going to be any, so we can skip any errors. I'm going to go and make reference to that vehicle. There we go. And then I'm going to do dot, and I want to get the date, right? And that's it. Notice that nothing is going to happen because we are not adding the decorator. So the alert is a little bit annoying, but that's okay. So I'm going to go and put the decorator before the class. So now, of course, I'm going to reload it. And after, right here, we get the vehicle date. So you can use the same decorator, and you can, again, put it on a different file. Then you import it, and you put it on top of any class you wish. And that will inject this to this method and this property, and you instantly get access whenever you create a new instance. And that is, the benefit of using a decorator. You can put things inside before, you're even using it. That's pretty cool. Now, of course, we get a lot more magic with decorators. We can do factories, and we can stack decorators. So let's go to the next one, and I'm going to show you how that works. All right, so we get two different things we can use with class decorators. We get factories, and we can do stacking decorators. First, they are pretty simple. They are really simple. Now that you know what a decorator is, they're going to be easy to understand. So first, I'm going to show you these stacking decorators. And I'm going to delete this vehicle because we don't need it anymore. And if we have a lot of code right here, it's going to get a little bit confusing. And the only thing I'm going to leave, I'm going to comment this out, and I'm just going to leave the console log for the brand. That's it. So if you go, we get Ford. Okay. So for example, what we can do, you can create different decorators, non-related decorators, and then you can stack them on the same class. And you're going to be adding whatever you're adding on the decorator. Let me show you. I'm going to go right here at the top, and I'm going to create a different function, and this one is going to be other decorator. Just to put a name, other decorator. And on this one, we do pretty much the same thing. We do get access to the constructor, and this one, it's going to be a function. All right. What I want to do on this one, I just want to add a property. So I'm going to go constructor. I'm going to do prototype dot, and I'm going to add other. That's the property I'm going to add. And I'm going to say other value. Doesn't matter. Okay. So now what we can do, I can say, okay, so I want to go at the top of this function and add another decorator. So now we have two. And these two, both are messing with the constructor and adding the different values. So now what I can do just to make sure everything works, I can go to car and make a reference to other, right? Of course, we need to do the fix. So I'm going to go here and say any, and there we go. We get no errors. And if we go, we get access to the other value. So now all of this and all of this are part of the constructor on this class. So pretty cool. You can stack a million decorators if you wish. One place where you can get a lot of examples with this one, these ones are on decoration files. On decoration files, you're going to find a lot of decorators. Not on all decoration files, but on some of them. Okay, so this was, stacking decorators. Let me show you what factories are. And they are, again, really simple. So what I want to do, I want to be able to pass an argument. I want to make a reference to this decorator, to the other decorator. And I want to, pass an argument with a string, something like that, something very dumb. So later, when I make a reference to this decorator, I want to catch dot argument, and I want to use it inside. So by default, we cannot pass arguments to the actual decorator. We cannot, because this decorator, it's expecting a very important argument, which is just the constructor. So we cannot pass arguments. So what we use to make arguments available are factories. Right, okay. So a factory, it's a fancy word. A factory, the only thing that it is just a function that returns something. It's going to be returning this decorator or something else. It's just a function that returns something. That's it. It's just a fancy word. So if I wanted to be able to use this inside of the constructor directly, we cannot do it. We need to do it through a factory. So I'm gonna delete all of this, and I'm gonna leave that one, and I'm gonna just comment. I'm gonna build it again. So I'm making a reference to this function. All right. Since I'm using it as a factory, I'm going to be passing a name. I'm going to be passing some real argument. So we're going to catch this name right here, and we're going to say that this is a string. Now, so far, we are not doing anything with the constructor. So what do we need to do now? Well, what we need to do, we need to really return that decorator. So I'm going to be returning a function. So let me do it correctly, function. And this function will contain all the things we are doing right here. Of course, we always need to return something. And this one will get access to the constructor, and the constructor is just a function. So notice that the TypeScript will not complain. The only thing that it's telling us is that we are passing an argument and we are not really using it. But, besides that, everything still works. Everything is just the same. And everything still works, we get the other value. So we are using this decorator correctly. Now, since we are passing an argument, the way we use it, we just, use it outside of the return of the function. Remember, we cannot use it inside. So I'm going to go and say if, and I'm just giving you an example, okay? And I'm going to say else. So if this name argument is triple equal, or it could be double equal to Mike, then what I want to do, I want to mess with the constructor and add this other property, all right? If not, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just return null. I'm not going to return anything. So if the case is that this is Mike, we're going to add this to the constructor. If not, nothing is going to happen. So I'm going to not do it Mike. I'm going to do, I don't know, Steve or something like that. And if I save this, we're going to get undefined. Because we are not using this decorator, we are not adding any logic inside of the constructor. If I change it to Mike, that is going to go true, and we should be able to see the other value right here. So that works. So this is what a factory is. It's just a function where we do some logical code, and then we attach the information to the constructor if we want to, and if not, we do something else. That is it. It's just a function with an if or something inside. That's it. Nothing, just a fancy word. Okay, so let me just take you to the docs, and I'm going to get a coffee because I'm a little bit tired right now. I've been talking for like 3 hours. So I'm going to go to the documentation, and I'm going to go right here at the top. And it says, blah, 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 blah. And then to support annotating or modifying classes or class members. And this is what I wanted to show you. We are able to use decorators on classes and class members. Now, if we keep scrolling down, this is the example we get, on decorators. And if we go all the way down, we're going to get, let me see if I can find it. We get method decorators. We can use it directly on methods. Notice right here, we get the example. Then we can use it on accessors. We can use it on properties. And we can use it on parameters. And depending on where are we using it, we change the code just a little bit. And I know you must be thinking, dude, this was pretty long, a little bit confusing. Well, not really, since now you know how this works on classes. You know now the main purpose. So we have again the same purpose with methods, accessors, and everything else, but we just target different parts. But the logic, it's pretty much the same. We create a decorator to access something inside of the class or the class itself to do some changes or to inspect something or, to do something. That's it. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And we're gonna talk about, let me scroll up. We're gonna talk about method decorators. You can read the documentation, they're pretty simple. All right, so let's go to the next one and let's do methods. All right, so now we're going to talk about method decorators. Just like we did with classes, I'm going to give you a dumb example and then we're going to use a decorator on a method. So let me create a class first. I'm going to create a class of tool, and this one will have a name. I'm not really sure we're going to use it, but I much prefer to, to put it right now than doing it later. So I'm going to use name. This is going to be a string, and of course we need to pass the value. It's going to be name and this name. All right. So I'm going to add two different methods. One is going to be price, and the other one is going to be print. Just two methods. Pretty simple. Now the price is going to do console log, and this one is console log is going to console log the price of the product, and this one will say console log and I don't know, something dumb, printing tool. All right. So far, we just got a class, no decorator. So let's create a decorator. Now we know that with the class decorator, we had one argument, which was the constructor. Well, with method decorators is a little bit different. You get different arguments. So I'm going to create a function called print decorator. You can call this whatever you want. And on the arguments, what we need to use a target. That's the first argument, target. Oh, let me do it correctly. Target. The target, it's going to be of type any. And on this case, this is okay, right? We are allowed to use any. Then we have property key. And I know this was, it's a little bit confusing, but don't worry. You're going to get it in a second. And then we get a descriptor. All right. So the descriptor takes the property descriptor. All right. Again, confusing. Don't worry. I'm going to do console log, and I'm going to console log what we get on these arguments. So let me just copy paste, so just to do it a little bit faster. And then I'm going to be passing the property key and then the descriptor. All right. So no errors, and there's no need for us to create an instance at this point. Okay, so let's see what we get inside. First, we get the target. If we go right here and reload the application, of course, we need to make a reference to the decorator. We are just creating a function so far. I'm going to go right here at the top, and since with the class decorator, we put it at the beginning of the class. On the method, we put it at the beginning of the method, just before the start of the method. All right, that's okay. So now we get the console logs. Okay, so this one is the first one, which is the target. So this one gives us the context of where this print method is. Since the context is going to be inside of class, and that class has a price method, a print method, and a constructor, that's what we get. So again, it's just a reference of where what is the context, right? And I mean the context, I mean the class. Pretty cool. So now when we use a decorator and a method, we can inspect and have not access, but we can know what we have on other, pieces of the same class. Right, that's the target. Then we get the property key. Now the property key is just the name of the method. In this case, it's print, so we get print. If we call it clown or something like that, we're gonna get clown. All right, that's good. We print, it's correct. All right, so then we get the other one, the descriptor and property descriptor, and this is going to be a little bit weird. So whenever you create a method on a class, by default you get this right here. You get the defined property. Now on this one, you're going to get different tools inside by default, which are these four options. Again, by default, you get the property descriptor, which is this one, and you're gonna get it. On methods, and this is by default with just vanilla JavaScript. Whatever version of JavaScript you have a method, you have these four different options. Doesn't matter TypeScript, right? Just JavaScript. So when you get these four options, you can do pretty much four things. The value is going to be the actual function, right? A reference to the action function. And then you're going to get three more configuration options. The first one, the configurable, it's pretty much if you can change this definition or this definition can be changed. And by default, it's true. It's going to allow us to do that. Then you have the invariable, and this one, it's by default, it's true. And this one means that we can loop the property or not. If we change it to false, we cannot loop it. Pretty simple. And then you get the writable. Let's say I want to change this function, whatever is inside this method. If I change the the writable to false, we are not going to be allowed to change whatever we have right here. Pretty simple. Of course, again, this is just vanilla JavaScript. You can go to Mozilla and look for defined property, and you're going to get a brief explanation of what these values are. All right, let me show you an example. I'm going to go at the top, and I'm going to say, let me create the instance first. I'm going to create an instance of this class, and we're going to do a console log of something. I'm going to do tool. I'm going to create a new tool. Right, and I'm going to pass a name. This is a hammer, a very expensive hammer, $200, a gold hammer. So then I'm going to do tool, and I'm going to do print. All right, so if we do print, we should be getting the printing tool message. Cool, all right. So then the developer, what it's going to do, some other developer, he will want to, or she will want to change this. So it's going to go, oh, okay, I want to change it. I'm going to go and say tool print. It's now equal to something else. Doesn't matter. So I'm going to do console log and something else. All right. So if I save it and then I do the same thing, tool print, we can see that they are changing it, changing the nature of that function. Now, what I can do from the decorator, I can say, no, I don't want for anyone to change this, So I can access the descriptor. I can access that rule, the writable, the property, and change it to false. As soon as I save it, we get an error. It says cannot assign to read-only property. So this property is just a read-only. We made it read-only. So we are not allowing other developers to mess with this method. Very cool. Now, if I change it back to true, as soon as I save it, we can see that this is going to change, and we are allowed to change it. So again, it's just another thing we get with decorators that we can handle some properties inside of a method. Again, this is just like I told before, is experimental, and we don't have a lot of access to method decorators in class. We just get some access and some tools just to make better code. That's it. But again, it's still experimental. Now, if I go right here, let me see if I can find it. 1 second. 1 second. Let me just try to find something. Maybe it's not here. There's one tool, and it's on the documentation. And they on the documentation they ask you, or they advise that there is a different tool. This one, the reflect metadata, and this is a library, reflect metadata library. We can install and use it along with decorators to get a little bit more support in what we are doing. Of course, I'm not going to show you because this is gonna get very challenging. But you're allowed to go to that library and see what this is about. But on this one, again, we kind of added to get a little bit more support in what we are doing, because as far this the decorators are not that strong. They're a little bit restricted. Okay, that's good. There's nothing else I can show you from here. Let's go to the next one, which is going to be the property decorator. And that one is going to be pretty simple because just like the method decorator, there are not a lot of things we can do. Okay, so now we're going to talk about property decorators and parameter decorators. Now, I'm just going to tell you there's not much we can do with them. I'm just gonna show you and just let you know, show you how to use them, but we don't have a lot of power with these ones. Now, I forgot to mention that we have accessor decorators. Remember the accessors? When we do the get, for example, and they work just like the methods decorators. They're pretty much the same, actually exactly the same. So we can use target, property key, and descriptor, and we have access to the descriptor. That's it. It's the same as methods. So I'm not going to record a different section just to teach you accessors decorators, because they are the same as methods. All right. And remember that on methods, you can still do factories if you wish. All right. So let's go to the do the properties. Let me show you what we can do with properties. I'm going to change the name of the decorator for name decorator. I'm going to delete the property descriptor because we don't get with the property the descriptor. So I'm just going to leave the property key and the property target. This is the two options we get with the properties. And I'm going to remove the print decorator, and I'm going to put the name decorator right here at the top. All right. So, okay. So let me remove all this. Let me remove print so we can clear the console. I'm going to save it and go back to the our application. So when we print, we console log this, we get first the target and then the property key. So the target, it's pretty much the same with methods. We get the context of where this property is. That's it. We get the context, which is the prototype. All right, it's just a prototype of the class. Now, remember that on the prototype of a class, we just get definitions. There's not much we can do, but again, you get access to that. And the other one is going to be the property key, which is the name of the actual property. All right. So what can we do with this? Nothing else. The only thing we can do is just access to the prototype and access to the name. That's the only thing we can do with property decorators. And then the problem is that it's because target, it's the prototype of the class. And again, we just have method definitions. That's why we get the method. That's it. And for example, on a property, on an instance of a property, for example, when you create an instance, we are doing right here, you have the constructor, and here is where everything like strings, numbers, all the properties, everything gets built. And the problem is that when we create an instance of this never ran. That is the problem. The decorator runs always first, and only when we create this is gonna kick in. But it's gonna kick in after the decorator. That's why we don't have a direct access to the property, because it's not ready. And that is a problem. That's why we don't get a lot of power with decorators for properties. We just don't have access because this was not built. That is the problem. I'm just trying to explain this in simple words. So yeah, we have pretty much a pretty large limitation with decorators for properties. And all this, of course, is on the docs. So if we go to the docs, let me go here, and we go to property decorators. Let me see if I can find right here. Let me just find the. There's something that right here that they say. Let me just try to find it. Oh, here. Under property decorators, it says, as such, a property decorator can only be used to observe that property on a specific name has been declared for a class. So again, simple words, you just can see what's the name of the key and what's the prototype. That's it. That's the only thing you can do. And again, in addition, they give you this reflect metadata, so you can do a few more things, but that's it. So what can we do with parameter decorators? Nothing. Just like property decorators, we can just observe what's going on right here. So let me just find again. We pretty much have the same message. That the only thing we can do is observe right here. It says note: our parameter decorator can only be used to observe and whatever. All right. Let me show you at least. Let me show you how to use it at least. All right. So I'm going to go and just redo this name decorator. I'm going to change it to param decorator. All right. It's a param decorator. Now we still get a target. Now we still get a property key, and we get one more right now. So we get param, parameter, and then index. And I know that you can assume why we will use this one. So of course it's number. All right. And I'm going to do a console log of the same one. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste. Now we don't have a name decorator anymore. And I'm going to go maybe to the print because, we were using this one. I'm just going to put it there. I'm going to use is true. And this is going to be a string. Then I'm going to do comma. And then I'm going to do print number. and this one, it's going to be number. All right. Now I'm getting the parameters not used. If we go to the right here to the dsconfig, I can comment this out and just fix that. All right. So okay, so we get two different arguments. We get two parameters. All right. So what we can do is that we can put this decorator in front of an argument. So in this case, it's going to be called parameter decorator. So let me just change it to that. Notice that the error goes away. So we can put it in front of an argument or a parameter, and we will have access to all of these three things. All right. So again, just like we did before, let's go to the console log and see what we get. So I'm going to reload. And first we get the target. What is the target? Same thing than before. It's the prototype. All right. Then we get the property key, which is this one. And again, we get the name of the function where we are putting this decorator. All right. And then we get 1. All right. What is 1? Well, what it's giving us is the position of this on this array of arguments. So it's going to treat this as an array. So if the first one is true, that one is going to be 0. If this is the second position, it's going to be 1, just like an array. If I put the parameter decorator, we're going to get the position 0. Let me just change it to is true. So we get 0. And that's it. That's the only thing we can do. Told you it was pretty useless, but you might want to use it somehow. So again, we get pretty much the same reflect metadata library. They ask us, they tell us that we can use it right here. And of course, if you want to use it, that's fine by me. But again, you will not use decorators on parameters and properties because they're not that useful. Now, the method decorators and the class decorators are really useful. So, I would maybe use it on the next couple sections.